Hi everyone and welcome to another video. I am currently walking through the rain in Yoyogi Park. It's a lovely vibe. If you're not following me over on Instagram, it might be a little bit random that I'm back in Japan, but surprise, here we are. Last week we had our Trover trip. We went on this lovely trip across Tokyo, Kyoto and Osaka with a group of about 20 people. However, we are still in Japan for a little bit. I wanted to take this opportunity to do something a little bit different. I've been wanting to stay at this book-themed capsule hotel. It's been such a long time that I've wanted to check out this place. I think the trumpet has kicked back in now, so I'm sorry if that's a little bit distracting. If you know anything about Japan, then you would know about the capsule hotels that they have in Tokyo. Essentially, you have a shared space and you have these teeny tiny pods and they're very famous and everyone knows about them. I've never stayed in a capsule hotel before, but this particular hotel, which is a book-themed capsule hotel, has been on my radar for ages. The name of the hostel we're going to be staying at is the Book and Bed. I'm going to be staying in the one in Shinjuku. It's a little bit north of the station, but technically it's in Kabukicho, but it's going to be fine. I've never stayed in a hostel before, so it's going to be a fun new experience for me. Let's go head off and stay at a book-themed capsule hotel. The check-in process was a little bit awkward, but I made it into the Book and Bed Tōkyō. I didn't realize exactly where in Kabukicho this particular hostel was located, right in the center of it. Now, if you don't know anything about Tokyo, I should probably let you know that Kabukicho is the only area of Tokyo that I've ever really heard of being referred to as less safe. It's honestly fine. Like, if you're walking around there, you're gonna be fine. If you're the kind of person who's likely to get conned by pretty women in bars, then you might not be fine, but for most people, it's not gonna be an issue for you at all. However, it is a bit more of a rowdy party suburb, so do I love the fact that the book-themed capsule hotel was located in like a red light district that's really noisy and has a lot of clubs and drunk people? Not especially, but you know, books and clubbing go hand in hand, don't they? Like that's a really obvious pairing. Anyway, doesn't matter. We're in Kabukicho. We're in the Book and Bed Tokyo, and it is absolutely beautiful. So I suppose that's my first impression of the Book and Bed Hotel. There's no one directly next to me, but the roof is open, so I don't think anyone's asleep next to me right now, but I'm definitely not going to be talking later at night because otherwise like everyone would be able to hear what I'm saying. Yeah, it's very, very pretty so far. The very first thing I need to do is make the bed, put the pillowcase on and do all of this. This bed is really high up. A little bit scared because I am prone to sleepwalking, normally not in hotels and stuff, but it's just, I'm also a very clumsy person, so I'm a little bit scared of falling down the ladder. Yeah, it's very, very pretty so far, so aesthetically pleasing. I'm probably just gonna make my bed and then check out the cafe and maybe order something. So there is actually a little cafe attached to the Book and Bed hostel. It has a small but very aesthetically pleasing menu of things like black iced lattes and fruit salad and just foods that are a little bit emo in their presentation. The last order for the cafe I think was at 7 p.m, which snuck up quite quickly for me because check-in was at 4 p.m. But anyway, I scuttled over to the cafe, I ordered something, I picked out a book and I found a cozy little nook in which to read. was really quiet when I checked in, and it sort of was quiet to the point where it was quite uncomfortable, but now there are actually people around and people are chatting, so it's a bit noisier. I just finished eating dinner and I had the black chicken sandwich and also the black lemonade, and this was really interesting because the lemonade was so the lemonade was so sour I had to double check if it had alcohol in it or not. That is the sourest lemon I've ever had. It was really aesthetically pleasing though, so it was very, very pretty, but I was like just a little bit taken aback by it. It's stunning in here, it's so pretty, it's such a beautiful place to sit and read. There's a lot of books around. I could have predicted this, but obviously most of the books are in Japanese. I did pick up a book that I can read though. I can read most of the vocab in the children's picture books, and otherwise they're just really pretty to look at. So I've had a look at a couple of these already. As I said, there aren't that many people around. I think probably because it's a Monday night, like it feels pretty quiet. There's like a day charge fee, so you could come up here and work for a little bit. If you just want to use the cafe, you can actually pop in here without staying here, so you can like spend like money to stay here for a couple hours. I am interested to see how the sleeping situation is going to go. I'm just finishing dinner now, and then I'm probably going to go scout around and find some more things to read. quiet. It's really ironic to me looking back at the footage I've edited and me being like, oh my god, it's so quiet to the point where it's almost uncomfortable. That all changed when it hit around midnight. Now, I knew the capsule hotel was gonna be a little bit noisy. It's a hostel, like it's in Kabukicho. There are clubs everywhere, there are people drinking everywhere. I was expecting a bit of noise and potentially people drinking. And so as the night progressed, it started getting a little bit noisier and I was like, okay, this is all good. And then around midnight, I was in my capsule, I was trying to sleep, and from a capsule somewhere near me, I have no idea how far away it was, maybe it was like 5 meters away, not sure, I start hearing some really interesting sounds. There was a woman in a capsule near me who was having a really good time, like a really loudly good time, but she was vocal. And so that went on for a good while, and I'm like lying in my capsule being like, what the fuck am I listening to? Like, what is going on? The worst part to that, which happened shortly after, was that once she was done, once she was finished, she started loudly sobbing. She finally stops. It's finally silent again in the hostel. None of the other travelers are making a sound. Like, I can kind of hear and perceive the 20 other people in the hostel who are just silently in their little capsules being like, what just happened? And then she started again. Like, the cycle repeated again, like both parts of that cycle repeated again. Everyone can hear this. This is not a very big space at all. The staff, surely the staff can hear this because the lobby is like right next to the common area. Like sure, why aren't they doing anything? So that sequence of events went on for a good long while, and then a drunk girl, I'm assuming she came back from clubbing, was swearing really, really loudly and aggressively. She was talking to her friend, and it was the kind of swearing that was like a bit erratic and unsettling. And then after that, eventually the guy beneath me fell asleep because I was like on the top bunk basically, and so he was on the bunk underneath me. But I am fascinated by the science of how sound works, and I know because I live in a tall glass building that sound travels up flat surfaces, right? But it turns out that if you're encased in a tiny, thin plywood box, not unlike a cheap coffin, sound not only travels up the flat surfaces, but I think it's a little bit amplified by the malleable wood that's moving, because I swear to God, this guy was snoring so loudly that the wood of my capsule was vibrating. Like, anyway, the only way that I got to sleep that night was I put in headphones and I blasted Sleep Token really loudly. That was one of the most eventful nights of my life. I was texting Tyler being like, what the fuck is going on? You know, I'm not a prudish person at all. Look at some of the books I've recommended you guys, but there are just some things I don't need to hear when I'm wearing my pajamas and my retainer is in and I'm already uncomfortable enough and anxious enough because there's no lock on my door and I just want to go to sleep. I really considered scrapping this video and I really considered not mentioning any of this because I was like, I don't want to complain, I don't want to be annoying, but here we are. I thought it was funny. That's what actually happened when I was staying here. Anyway, back to the video. In a bit of a whispery voice, I can quickly update you. That was a very eventful night. I think I slept for maybe 3 hours in total. So I probably look a little bit tired, but I'm probably gonna check out the books a little bit more and then basically get ready to leave. Hello everyone, this is the first time I've been able to speak at a normal volume in many hours. Wow, what an experience! I went into staying at the Book in Bed Tōkyō knowing that the hostel experience was probably not going to be for me. Like, I wasn't under any illusions. I knew that probably wasn't going to be my vibe. However, I wanted to try out the hostel anyway because it was so pretty. I'd been wanting to stay there for a really long time. It's just as beautiful in person as it is in photos. And it really was lovely getting to like peruse all the books and have a look around. There was a really good selection of books both in Japanese and in English as well. However, from the perspective of staying there, sleeping there, was it a comfortable experience? Not very much. I want this to be an honest review. One of the travelers who went on the Trova trip with us, her name was Millie, she stayed there a few days before we had our Trova trip, and she had a pretty good experience, so it might be that I just got a little bit unlucky. I think I got like 3 hours of sleep. It wasn't the most comfortable sleep. It was like 50,000, it was 5,000 yen for the night, so it's pretty cheap compared to staying in a hotel. I do just also want to say as well that I'm super aware that for a lot of people, hostels are the only way to make international travel financially accessible. I'm realizing that I've been really lucky in the fact that every time I've traveled internationally, I've been with my partner and we've traveled to Asia. And in Asia, you can pay for really cheap business hotels that don't cost a lot of money. And so even though my experience of travel has always been not frugal, like it's still a really affluent thing to be able to travel overseas, but we've tried to save as much money as possible when we traveled as students, but we always traveled to Asia where the accommodation was cheap. And there's never really been a reason for the two of us to stay at a hostel, because if you have 2 people, it is just as cheap to stay in a cheap business hotel. And so I don't want to sit here and be like, don't stay in hostels, hostels are bad. Like, I'm sure there are many great hostels, and I'm sure that your experience of staying in a hostel is entirely dependent on the people you happen to be staying with that night, like the other people in the hostel. It is a necessity for a lot of travelers. However, for me as a person who's really anxious about not being able to lock a door and sleep in complete safety, it was quite an uncomfortable experience for me. I did also want to say as well that I've mentioned Kabukicho a few times throughout this video. If you're coming to Tokyo and you only have a few days and you want to stay somewhere, please don't stay in Kabukicho. Tokyo is my favorite place on this earth. It is so lovely. It's so much fun. There's so many wonderful, leafy, quiet, beautiful suburbs where you can stay. I wouldn't want anyone's first impression of Japan to be Kabukicho. Like, even stay in Shinjuku. I've stayed there many times. I love Shinjuku. It's great. But stay in the western part of Shinjuku, or stay like near Shinjuku Going Garden. Just don't stay in Kabukicho is my main bit of advice from this video. Pick somewhere else. I think the other thing I wanted to mention was that the bathrooms were a little bit of an interesting time. So it was a little bit jarring because they were basically not gender segregated at all. When the guy was like originally showing me around, he was like, yeah, the women's bathrooms are over here, but like they're all in the same room basically. As you guys would have gathered from the video, you can't talk in there. Like, there's nowhere in the Book in Bed hotel where you're not directly next to someone sleeping. Like, there's no like common area where you can actually talk. Brushing my teeth, and there was just a man next to me just on the phone to his friend, and his friend was also crying. I mean, I think just crying was a theme. I think it was a theme of the night. I'd read some reviews. A few of them said that the bathrooms were a little bit dirty. I think my point of reference is probably a bit shitter than other people's, because when I was a kid, I mostly stayed in like caravan parks, and I tell you what, you have not lived until you've had to shower in the wolf spider infested toilet block of the Murray Bridge Caravan Park. So like, my standards are not like very high at all. I think it was just the anxiety of being in common spaces with lots of other people, in sleeping in a space where you can't lock the door. I'd rather spend the extra money and have a place with a lock on the door, and also not be kept awake by, as I mentioned, various things happening in the night. My first time in a hostel, it was definitely memorable. Not the most comfortable experience, but I didn't go in expecting it. I knew it was going to be a hostel. It's a very, very beautiful hostel though. Would I recommend it? I don't know if I would, just because I had kind of a mixed experience of staying there. You can pay the like day charge fee and stay there for a couple hours and just check it out. So I think if you want some pretty Instagram photo, like if that's your vibe, if you just want to take a little bit of content, or if you just want to see what it looks like, I would say pay the like 500 yen an hour or whatever it is, go there for a couple of hours, hang out, and then maybe go stay somewhere else. I don't want to give the book in bed Tōkyō an unfair review. I think I just got a little bit unlucky with the people who were staying there that night. It was serviceable enough, it was clean enough, the facilities were really, really pretty, like really beautiful. But again, in case it wasn't clear enough already, I would not recommend staying in Kabukicho area. Anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and also I want to say an enormous thank you to everyone over on Patreon for supporting my channel, for allowing me to make ridiculous content like this. I wouldn't be able to make any of this content without the people over on Patreon. Over there we have a whole bunch of lovely bonus content like our book club, our Discord server. There's so many things, so if you want to support my channel or get more updates from me, feel free to check out Patreon. Take care everyone, and I will see you next time. Bye bye.